This conference will now be recorded.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming today. My name is Rod Soto, and I'm part of HackMiami. We meet every 2 weeks, and today we have a couple of presentations. The first one, which I'm going to allow Marco Palacios, which is my partner on the West Coast, part of Pacific Hackers, introduce a very interesting organization called ITRDC that has to do with disaster recovery and volunteering for type of infrastructure help in these cases. Obviously, this is a HackMiami meeting. Florida is, I guess, very familiar with disaster. We live through it every 6 months. We sort of have been lucky the last 3 or 4 years, but if you live in Florida, you know that it's a matter of when, but at one point it's going to happen. And then after that, we're going to have a questions and answers for breaking into cybersecurity, and we have put together an amazing panel. We have Patrice, which is she's like our top performer from our female side. Spoke at RSA, works at Visa. I mean, she's done it all. So hopefully you guys will ask her all kinds of questions. And we also going to have Ace Sor, which is works for also I think Oracle, and he is so far he is part of what I call the greatest generation of HackMiami. Everybody that wasn't his generation ended up either working for a three-letter agency, working for some amazing, incredible company. And I will tell you more as we get into the panel. So thank you, Ace, for coming. And with that, then let's get started with the introduction to ITRDC. So Marco, take it away.
All right. Hey guys, thank you so much. It's nice seeing everybody, familiar faces, Patrice, Blue Fox, Sam. Today it's an honor to present two people that I have worked with. Well, we work in the same company, but not only that, it's an honor that they are my friends. And when I was talking to them, about HackMiami and what you guys do in the East Coast and Pacific Hackers, in the West Coast, I think this was a great opportunity for them to know this and more about them and their organization, what they're trying to do. So again, it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce Roger and Brian with ITDRC. So Roger, Brian, take it away.
All right. Hey, can everybody hear me okay? I have a fan going on in the background.
Yep, I hear you.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I did a modified version of this a few years ago at a DEF CON event, and Brian came up in the crowd and is like, dude, I work with you. So I was
Work
like,
in the same building, yep.
Yeah, I was like, how come I never see you? He was like, well, I'm in IT, so I'm in InfoSec, so I kind of stay in the shadows. So anyway, he and I hit it off, and I started looping him into some of the projects that we were doing, and we've gone through several disasters together, mostly here in California with wildfires, and we're always looking to partner with groups like you guys. And I think, where I could see us working together is maybe whenever we have more regional events like hurricanes and stuff like that, that we need some extra IT talent. You guys could be really helpful. And then likewise, whenever we have downtime, usually in the winter when there's no disasters, our volunteers could, partner with you all and attend your events and stuff. So anyway, can somebody pass me the ball? And while I try to fiddle with my computer, do you have anything to add, Brian?
Yeah, so, getting involved with this ITDRC group, I have to actually change hats, take off the hacker hat here. See, I have props too here, there, the ITDRC hat. I normally, try to hack Wi-Fi. ITDRC, I'm setting up Wi-Fi. So it's a nice change to be able to put our technical talents to use to help people. You know, disaster happens, you think of people going and you know, going in and fighting fires or digging ditches or providing food. All of those things, the logistics around it, the communications has to happen in order for all of that to, in order for that to flow. So we get in there and kind of the second responders, you know, after they, you know, put the fires down or get the water cleared, and then we go set up infrastructure for communication, whether it's for the responders or for the evacuees. And it's super rewarding work. I basically, after Roger introduced me to the group, I basically lurked and sat in the background and watched a couple of disasters to see what the flow was and how it worked. And then this last year, I just went whole hog and jumped in and got involved in the field. So, you know, besides the frontline field work and, you know, crimping cables and going up and putting Wi-Fi up and setting up phone banks or whatever, there's a lot of back end work as well. There's a SOC knock work that has to be done on the back end, taking all this data, knowing where all the gear is, what sites are up, what sites are down. You know, there's even work, you know, driving trailers from one location to another. So there's all kinds of levels of work, both, you know, technical, logistical. It takes a big team just to get a few people out in the field. So I think I'll let Roger explain a little bit more. And I really appreciate that he came over to the DEF CON group, and I ran into him there and met my coworker somewhere else. We have a lot of, just to let you know too, we do have a number of people from the InfoSec space. It's actually surprising. InfoSec people really like to get involved with this. So this is a really natural pool of talent. Because we're used to dealing with disasters and chaos, I think it lends itself to this kind of volunteering. So I'll let Roger take it away a little more. I could keep on talking because I had way too much coffee.
Hey, could somebody pass me the presenter ball on GoToMeeting?
You know,
Somebody's got to call Rod.
yeah, it looks like he's stepped away. So give me a second. Let me text him really quick.
No problem.
Hey,
or Marco, if you have presenter rights, I shared it with you, and I can just tell you when to go slide. You know, go to the next one.
I don't think I have them, to be honest.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, only Rod
Gotcha.
has it. Let me,
Well, that's cool. While he's
Roger,
coming back, we can just talk about stuff. What's that?
I was actually interested when I saw Rod post about the ITDRC. So I went on the site and I started looking around, and I clicked on the volunteer page, and I noticed like that you guys have a section for technical skills, and it looks like it was mainly focused around like a Windows shop. Is that kind of what the deal is, or?
No, it depends. I think we typically have a lot of IT generalists that join. I mean, most of our stuff, to be brutally honest, is, you know, IT stuff that you would do for helping your parents at home. You know, a lot of, you know, little setups, a printer, a computer, Wi-Fi. You know, sometimes we have a satellite uplink and stuff like that. So I think Windows skills are kind of important just because the people we're serving are often using Windows, but that's not specific. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. Brian and I do some of the more, you know, since we work at Fortinet, we do a lot of stuff with the Fortinet. We try to offload that as much as we can. Different people come in with different skills. You know, believe it or not, tech is actually not what we need the most sometimes. It's more project management, program management, stuff like that. So yeah, I think maybe we could do a better job on that form and capturing some of the skills that it maybe we need. But yeah, if you have any feedback on that, let's chat afterwards.
Yeah,
we'll
I mean, we deal with Chromebooks out there in the field, and it really doesn't matter. I think the forum is just a way to say, you know, here's an example of some things, but, you know, I basically put on the forum when I joined, you know, I hack everything. So, you know, doesn't matter.
One thing I don't see on your website, though, is who do you have memorandums of understanding with from governmental and other support groups? Who are you supporting?
We have quite a few. I mean, FEMA, we work with them at the local level, depending on, you know, the disaster. We work a lot with VOADs, Volunteers Active. after a disaster. We work a lot with emergency communications groups. We work a lot with Verizon, Sprint, those groups that they have kind of these sat cults that they roll out and provide temporary cell services and stuff like that. So we do have a lot. There's only so much you can put on a web page, right? It would just be overloaded with logos. But if you ever deploy with this, you'll see tons of hats that and coins and stuff we trade with all of the local people and the MTU. Oh yeah, like that one. Yeah, he just got one.
Yeah, LA Fire. They'll hand us hats. And we're part of the team. That was from 3 weeks ago. We're down helping LA Fire Department get communications in a new place after they moved out of Dodger Stadium for their vaccine rollout program. So
yeah.
Fun little projects.
Yeah, in my opinion, those are a lot more fun and carry more weight than a dumb letter. Hey, Rod, could you pass me the ball? Sorry, go ahead. Someone's talking.
Yeah, I'm trying to find you. What are you?
Should be there. It says Roger.
Oh, there you go. Hold on, let me make you presenter.
Okay.
Done. Sorry.
Okay, I'll wait.
You should be a presenter now.
Yeah, it looks like the go to meeting's freezing for a second, so it looks like it's shifting over to me. Okay, go to this one. Change screen 2. Go. All right, can you guys see that? Cool. Let me do the present button.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, how's that look, guys? Can you guys see it? You see it?
Yep.
All right, I'm getting a feedback from someone there. Is that you, Brian? Oh, Patrice, I think I'm getting feedback from you. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're based out of Dallas. I kind of started in Dallas. Echo from Patrice there. So we started in Texas. There's a lot of tornadoes and hurricanes in Texas. And as we started to kind of branch out to the West Coast, whenever I first started about 2014 or 15 or so, we didn't do a lot in here in California. So most of our stuff was kind of related to hurricanes. We work with emergency management or agencies like we talked about, disaster relief organizations, and then the technology community in general. A lot of our stuff comes from donations of these big companies, and it's actually easier for them to donate to us and then have us break out that donation and give it to the little organizations. Here's some quick stats from this last year. 2020 was just absolutely insane because we doubled, tripled, quadrupled many of our projects with a lot of COVID relief stuff, which I'll cover later in a project we called Project Connect. We have about, I think it's like 2,700 people now. So these are mostly people in the kind of general IT range, a lot of kind of generalists. I think those are, I think once you get on the coast, you get a little bit more specialized talent, but in general, that's the kind of people who join. We've serviced over 1,000 communities. We have our asset value that we have donated that we then donate out is about $5 million. And we have a lot of tech assets that we actually track all of that and what we do for the community. Our sites absolutely skyrocketed this last year because of our Project Connect. I forget what the numbers are. I think it's about 1,000 or so sites that we put up. A lot of these were schools and libraries and places like that, so kids could get online. And then Brian had mentioned earlier kind of what we do. We have a priority to what kind of who we service. The first priority is always life safety. So this is the emergency managers and people like that who respond first. You know, mass care is the second. So think like the Red Cross shelters, the fairgrounds where all the survivors come, etc. And then community recovery would be something like a church that's you know, providing different services kind of on a long-term basis. And then long-term recovery, you know, we'll do a lot of campgrounds that they'll kind of set aside for people who are kind of rebuilding their lives. We'll bring in satellites in there and stuff like that. Anything you want to add here, Brian, on this slide, or even on the other two slides?
I think that's good. It's and over the last couple of years being in the field, I've certainly seen a few different areas of this. You know, we'll bring fire departments back online when there's no other communications. We did that during the fires this last year. You know, evacuees, definitely seeing a lot of shelter locations. We've got a project here in California where we're looking at all of the fairgrounds throughout California and assessing what happens, you know, when there's the earthquake and we need to get supplies out there. What do we do? So we're pre-planning, we're getting kind of ahead of the curve. So we need a lot of project planning skills as well in our teams. So that's, I guess, what I would add.
Prior, you're on mute.
Oh, whoops. I was saying, you know, regarding what Brian said about the project management, a lot of that's a really important skill, because a lot of the IT people will just kind of come and go. They'll come for, you know, donate a few hours and then leave. And having someone who thinks in terms of service delivery and can always help offer a, you know, consistent service to the people that we serve is often really important. So if you got people with project skills, please let us know. So here's kind of a graph of where we've been putting up stuff. As you can see there in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of that was fire and the COVID response. Our COVID response called Project 19. We do have a lot in New Mexico now because of that too, particularly with some of our stuff that we're doing with tribal nations. Few months ago, Brian and I actually went to Eastern Sierras and put in some access points, which you can see there. And yeah, a lot of stuff on the East Coast, a lot of stuff there in Puerto Rico. We were really active in Hurricane Maria, and then of course, a lot of stuff there on the Gulf of Texas and the Gulf in general. So all these green dots here are active sites. The red dots have been closed down. So here's some of our capabilities. We have different NIMS types vehicles, which for those of you not in emergency management, they're a particular class of vehicle with certain, you know, certain size, certain capabilities, et cetera. And then we often get requested for particular resources from the different regions. We do have a CIS team for critical infrastructure, and this sort of role requires a background check. So in addition to, you know, certain skills, our volunteers are kind of aligned in 1 of 10 regions across the U.S., similar to how FEMA is, and that helps us kind of map out to the you know, the different emergency managers that we work closely with. And here's kind of a general list of, you know, the assets we have, kind of what you'd expect, you know, you need for any sort of IT stuff, you know, computers, printers, cabling, you know, routers of some sort. All of this cache is actually in Dallas. And this is kind of a list of things that we offer for survivors in these different clinics and or shelters. This one was in the Campfire up in Chico area and Paradise. And this is actually I think I took this picture. this is the guy I worked with there, and he worked at Amazon. But you know, a lot of stuff we're doing there in the shelters are so people can kind of rebuild their lives, fill out insurance paperwork, keep their kids busy, keep them entertained, keep their phones charged, you know, that sort of thing. A lot of that stuff they just don't have. The fairgrounds just aren't prepared for this many people, just kind of slamming their Wi-Fi. So we kind of add a lot of extra capabilities there. You have anything you want to add there, Brian, on the last few slides?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, you know, besides the, you know, the very physical work of putting all of this stuff into place, you know, whether it's, you know, we utilize, you know, anything from Fortinet gear to Meraki to Aruba to Ruckus to Ubiquity, whatever we get our hands on, whatever we have in our cache. But when we're putting this all up, we're out there in the field, there's people on the back end typing away and making sure that all this connects to the cloud controllers and things like that. So again, we work very hand in hand, you know, with the field deployment and the people out there cabling everything up and getting dirty and sweaty in the heat, and then the people on the back end sitting on their couch, staying cool and drinking a soda and making sure it all works. So
yeah, that's a good point.
And project coordinators, I'm not going to, I'll keep harping on that because we need people that can do project management, project coordination. So the technical skills vary. You don't have to be a Wi-Fi wizard who knows how to produce heat maps. We have people that do that. So
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I tell people for every one person out there, there's 10 people supporting them. I mean, you need someone to plan their hotels, you need someone to plan their food, you need someone to make sure that start organizing the Trello cards with all of the inbound requests and figure out who to go to. You know, take for example this site here. You know, I remember this site. There was just always a rotating IC incident commander that we had to kind of deal with here, and finding out who that next person was just such a chore. So for him to hang this IP, like dozens of hours had to go into kind of, if not hundreds of hours, to kind of figure out the right people and where to hang it and all that stuff. So yeah, we always need people on the back end helping us, inventorying and stuff like that. Yeah, we work with a lot of NGOs. This particular picture is where they process a lot of like the volunteers. So, they'll come in and people will they'll have to get them processed. They sometimes don't have any sort of network, so we'll set up some sort of ad hoc network that needs to survive, days or weeks or maybe a few months, and then we'll kind of tailor make something for them. Yeah, anyway, we do have some assets that we'll drive around. This one is in TU2. We have screens in there, and then a lot of the other agency people will come in and work and collaborate on different projects. This is one of the NIMS class. I think it's the NIMS 1 or NIMS 4. I can't remember which one's the highest vehicle. This is one of the events that we had here at Google. Yeah, got together and had some exercises, had some challenges, some role-playing events, and a little bit more about what we do. I think we covered most of this. And then just briefly some of the different projects that we've been working. As you can see, there's a guy up there hanging an AP on the silo. I took these two here out in California. The one on the right is actually a camp that Brian Watson was. He was the incident commander on that particular deployment, and that's one of our partners, climbing up a pole to hang these units. Prior to this, it was just what was it out there before they put up these APs? It was just like a little cow or colt or something that wasn't very. Yeah,
they had T-Mobile had a truck just feeding one part of the lot. AT&T was on the other side, and then they had a Ubiquity infrastructure that was completely broken. So we went and hung these up and lit up this RV and camp evacuation center for a few hundred people.
Yeah, a lot of these places, like for example, this particular camp, I mean, they didn't have Wi-Fi in the areas where they put all the survivors. They just had them, in particular areas. And so, they need this kind of surge of capacity. in a lot of cases, after they get kind of spun up, they might be that site indefinitely for each year around this disaster time. So, you know, we'll work with them kind of on an ongoing basis. That's something Brian's doing now with a lot of the campgrounds here in California, or fairgrounds, I should say. Anyway, this is, I don't know if you guys see that, but that is a Starlink right there. And we set up our stuff behind that. Something we did for Hurricane Laura. I was not part of that one. Well, was part of this one though. These are all firefighters, and we set up some satellites and covered this area with Wi-Fi, and the firefighters were thrilled to be able to you know, talk to their kids and stuff at night, and you know, watch movies and all sorts of stuff. We set up some charging stations here, so they love the charging stations. We set up a bank of satellites, and something Brian and I are working on now with Fortinet gear is kind of an SD-WAN solution aggregating all of these different links, and so making it seamless to everyone behind it. They just know that, you know, they get an IP and it works, and on the back end we'll set up different solutions, and when one, you know, WAN link drops out, they'll not even know that it switches over to the other one. Yeah, lots of these charging stations. The firemen absolutely love it. And we actually are doing drone assessments now. One of the guys on our groups, he is does this. He's an ex-Googler, and we have gotten a bunch of information and then fed it to the different fire department and police, and it's been really helpful for them to kind of figure out how to coordinate things. And then it's also helpful for people as they start to fill out their insurance claims early, because they can actually, you know, document that their place is destroyed. You know, one thing we often do need, and this is something that, you know, I'm sure people here would know, is we often need local partners to quickly upload all this information to. So if you know of anyone who's on, like, you know, the internet backbone, and we could get them a drive and they could quickly upload stuff to buckets, that would be enormously helpful, because sometimes we just have to sneaker net this, you know, 12 hours somewhere else to get it uploaded. A point-to-point link we did, and then this was our COVID-19 request that I was talking to about earlier. I think we're up a few more than that now. So anyway, anything else? I feel like I've talked too much. Another shot inside our vehicle. Donation management is a huge deal. We'll come up with some clever solutions on kind of helping police document all these. Believe it or not, when people go down and donate stuff, that's a huge pain in the butt for these organizations. They don't have an inventory system. They don't have a way to give out gifts fairly. They don't have a way to find out who's really lost their house to this. So a lot of times, you know, police and fire will loop us in just to kind of figure out, okay, how do we inventory this? How do we, you know, create a database of everything, keep track. Anyway, that's it for me. Any other questions or questions about involvement or what we do or anything there? I do have a link here if people are interested.
Yeah, I'll just add another thing to it. That, you know, even if you don't know exactly what you would do, it's always good to just sign up, go through all the exercises of becoming deployable, and then something will come up and you'll say, oh, that's something I can do. When I first signed up, I was so busy with other things. There was no way I was going to go out in the field and deploy. I couldn't do that time commitment. But then when the opportunity hit, I was all ready to go, and I was very glad that I did that. So.
Yeah, and to touch on that, what Brian said, I mean, it's not like you can just sign up and jump on a plane and go, right? I mean, we have safety first is a big deal. So, you know, we ask people to go through the safety training. You know, chain of command is really important as we work with other agencies. So kind of knowing what the ICS terms are and working with that is really important. So, you know, sometimes you you sign up, you get to know all the tools, you get to know the people, you get to know, the Trello boards, the Slack channels, all that stuff, and then we'll send out requests for particular areas. And if you live in that area, we'll often ask locals to come first, and then later possibly fly someone in.
So it sounds like you're a much larger group. You're about overlapping with the IEEE Move group, which also deploys satellite trucks and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of us. We work together in the field, although I haven't actually seen them in the field. I've seen a lot of the others. But yeah, I've seen their webpage, and it looks like they're doing some good stuff.
Yeah, because I've talked to one of their people on the phone once.
Cool.
But it's just in general. Yes, this is not stuff you can. Since September 11th, this is not stuff you can just go out and run into the field last minute. And you're going to have a few 100,000 people just all of a sudden last minute want to volunteer after the disaster happens. You can't do that. Not with all the background checks and stuff they require nowadays.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a background check too that we ask people to go through, and then which makes sense, right? Because you're dealing with survivors' data. As you can see, in that previous picture, there was a bunch of teddy bears. Hate to have those stolen.
Or you can't say the ICS courses, if you want to ever take them, are free. They're just on FEMA's website.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah, there's 4 that we recommend, and 2 that are mandatory before we have you deploy.
This is incredible. From what I've seen here, you guys are doing a lot of work, and I really don't want us to delve or devolve into politics too much. But it looks like you guys should actually be FEMA and coordinate FEMA and police, because it looks like what you are doing is actually, it's almost like FEMA is actually not doing what it's supposed to do also. Maybe I'm overthinking this, because it looks like to be efficient from what you've presented, you guys should actually be in the place of FEMA and then coordinate all the police, the fire.
We're often, it all depends. Remember, FEMA is only kind of pulled in if it's a declared disaster. A lot of our work is in areas, it's some little podunk city that got hit by a hurricane, and it hasn't been declared a disaster. It may have just been a particular school that got flooded. So, FEMA gets called in for the big disasters, and money gets poured in. A lot of our work is the areas outside of that often doesn't make the news.
Yeah, but it looks like a subtle agreement that perhaps that local area government is not really responsible to its people. So if they can take care of in a disaster, they don't have disaster.
It's not that they're not responsible. It's like the cell phone towers, and they're probably compared to normal use, they're overwhelmed.
Correct. And let's be honest, nobody's responsive when your whole infrastructure gets blown away. You've got to kind of bring in folks from other regions with, generators and satellites and all this stuff to help you. So I think it's kind of hard to be the IT person for your company or for your group whenever you yourself have lost your home. And we see a lot of that sort of thing.
I have a question about, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the timeline for deployment from training and background checks, more or less what that is. Like, do you have self-paced trainings? Are they virtual? Do you have to be in person? Yeah.
So we have the 2 that are really important are the ICS ones, or is it ICS, ISC. Those are online. You can just take a test, and we do have a safety one that's a virtual one that you can take. Talks about kind of what we do and what a deployment's like, et cetera. But to actually help us remotely, that's not a big deal. We can basically give you a login to our inventory management and start, helping us organize as we scramble and put these up. That's lots of roles there, and that's how a lot of people start. They kind of figure out what the tools are and what needs to be done and what the process is, and then if they ever do deploy, then they're a little bit more productive out there once you get an idea of what it's like.
So I would say, realistically, at least figure a couple of months you know, looking at the communications, looking at the talk back and forth, understand the flow and how everybody works, and then you'll see opportunities pop up. So every month or two, we see opportunities pop up, and a call goes out to say, okay, anybody in this area can you help out with this project? And then people put in their capabilities.
Yeah, we use Everbridge to kind of target people in the local area, and then if we can't find them, we kind of create a bigger and bigger radius and try to get people that way. So yeah, you could do it in a couple months. That should be reasonable.
Okay,
but
final
unfortunately,
question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I keep interrupting people. I'm so awful at this. My final question is, would you recommend this for anybody who's new to tech, or that is primarily, or is this like primarily aimed at seasoned professionals? I know that you said that there are a few roles that you can just come on to that don't have anything to do with tech. But if I wanted to, for example, as an early career professional, come in and maybe even shadow people who are doing something that I'd be interested in, is that, or is this so critical that you can't do anything like that?
No, there's lots of roles like that. As a matter of fact, we have a very healthy job I don't want to call it hookup network in our group too, and a lot of people will actually look and recruit from this group because they seen people demonstrate their skills and stuff. So.
Yep. And out in the field, there's plenty of opportunity. I mean, teaching people how to put ends on a Cat5 cable. You start with that, pull some cable, do the grunt work, then start learning the console and learning how to do Meraki, Fortinet, Cisco gear setup. That kind of comes along with it. So it's not designed to be a training center, but you put in the work, and training just comes as part of the process.
Yeah, and I know some VPs of operations that pretty much exclusively recruit from this group because it's an easy way to see what people are made of. It's an easy way to cross-reference people to see how they've done in different operations. It's a great way to kind of see every single vendor under the sun, and kind of just see how innovative people are whenever they're presented with problems.
Yeah, and we're very vendor agnostic. I've been at Fortinet since 2006, and although I should say yes, we only use Fortinet. No, we don't. I set up Meraki's, I set up Ruckus, and everything else. So.
Yeah, imagine being a chef and you've got to cook for thousands of people, and you just got to make do with whatever ingredients you're given. That's kind of what it is. So. Some people love that challenge, and some people are, frustrated because they can't provision things like they're always used to provisioning. But
yep, but to love the smell of chaos in the morning.
Yeah, if you like challenges, we have tons of problems for you, and when you get finished fixing those, we'll give you some more as a thank you. Mm-hmm. It's the sort of environment it is. Yeah, any other questions, Amy, or anyone else? Or we're trying to get Marcos in the field. That's my 2021 goal. the next big fire. He's going to come and help us string
come on.
tens of thousands of feet of Cat5.
Yeah.
I got the tools. I can tell you that. Because I did that at my home. So.
All right. Well,
obviously,
good. I got you down, dude.
Just don't trip the refugees.
It looks like you deal with a lot of data. I may have missed this. Do you have a company like Salesforce donating to you and say, here, use our CRM for free because we believe in the cause or so, because you have a lot of data?
Yeah, we have Salesforce. I think some of these vendors are incredibly generous, and others are trying to see an opportunity to, get paid. As you can imagine, we try to use as much open source stuff as we can, just for control and hackability. And the more developers we get in, when we first started, we had a lot of general IT people, not a lot of developers. And I think the more people we got from places like Google and Red Hat and, different Linux shops, we started to develop some capabilities that we didn't have before. And that's kind of one of the reasons that Brian and I kind of reach out to groups like this is I think we need to start creating our own tools and be much more self-sufficient and not reliant on SaaS tools.
And Marco, I know how we're going to get you into the field. The next deployment. The next deployment. You get your hoodie.
Oh yeah. Brian got us Blockbuster hoodies from the last Blockbuster up in Bend.
Yeah, I was up there on a project and stopped by. There's actually one more Blockbuster in existence, and that's it. So.
And he got a picture of the Backdraft DVD with his hat on top and the Blockbuster background. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. So yeah, we get to go to cool places too sometimes, and we cross zones. So you know, I may end up in Miami at some point. You never know. My father lives down there in West Palm Beach, so I have family that way.
You guys know the World Central Kitchen? Okay, we work a lot with them and groups like them. So they'll do, you know, big, gigantic mass feeding sort of setups, and we'll work with them. But I think that they do a lot of stuff in the hurricanes. They're really active they started in Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. Anyway, any other questions? I don't want to eat into whoever's going to talk next, into their time.
No, I actually just wanted to throw a really big thank you out there to you gentlemen for presenting to us, and I'm really excited about eventually volunteering. I grew up in Miami, and I still have a little bit of trauma from Hurricane Andrew, and I've spent at least, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months of my life without power. So any way that I can get back and make things a little bit more comfortable for people, I would love to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That is awesome.
Join up, sign up. We need you.
Yeah, and there's a really cool women's group within ITDRC. I know they have regular meetings and record them and all of that. So I can't remember who asked the question about, you know, initial tech, you know, first time techs, but it's a really supportive network if you're looking to start your career.
Yeah, I mean, we're both always looking for ways to give back. I mean, I'm really excited about this. It seems really awesome.
Yeah, pretty nurturing group, and as long as you're willing to kind of, you know, make chicken salad out of chicken excrement sometimes, you'll be just fine.
Okay, time to put back on the hacker hat. There we go.
Well, thank you so much, guys. It was that was awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. This was I hope that a lot of us participate and join in the East Coast chapter. I know many times many of us are looking organizations of this type, and hopefully you will get a good number of people. And thank you very much for taking your time. And I know you're going to do it again for the PHAC meeting, I hope, at 2 p.m. Pacific. And that is great. So, all right, with that in mind, let me get going with the AMA for the cybersecurity, breaking into cybersecurity. I'm going to let Amy at one point take over. But before, I'd like to introduce the panel that we have today. Basically,
we have an intro too.
Oh, you do? You want to go ahead and do it then? Okay, awesome.
We really worked on it.
All right, awesome. Go
for
it,
Chris.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for it, guys. So hi, thank you again so much for coming, and then thank you so much for the ITDRC for that amazing presentation. Amy and I are from Miami-Dade College's Women in Cybersecurity student chapter, and we're going to answer everyone's career questions. If you have, I don't know, any curiosity about getting into the industry for the first time. My name is Chris, and I am an intern at Splunk, where I work on the critical incident response team.
And I'm Amy, not trying to take away your shine.
Go for it.
Interning at Amazon Alexa Cloud Secure Solutions. And I just want to begin Actually, you have this space now, right? You get to tell everybody how fabulous everyone on this panel is.
So guys, welcome again. This panel is going to involve 3 industry professionals, all big dogs in their own right. I'm going to start off with Rod Soto's intro. He's got over 15 years of experience in information technology and security. He actually won the Black Hat Capture the Flag event in Las Vegas in 2012, and his career has skyrocketed since then. He started off as a system administrator, and now he's a principal security research engineer at Splunk. He's given talks at Splunk's.com conference, DEFCON, and he's been quoted in publications like Rolling Stone magazine, Pen Test magazine, and Vice. A true fountain of knowledge, really. I've had the pleasure of speaking with him once about work. Give it up for Rod Soto, everybody. Cheers, yay. And then next up, we've got Ace. He's been a white hat professional for 8 years, but his interest actually began back when he was only 11 years old. From SOC analyst, or he is a SOC analyst, or eating my words, sorry about that, guys. He started off as a SOC analyst, but his background in networking systems and then wireless access and applications and firewalls and DDoS have led him to becoming a principal security engineer at a leading cloud provider. Not only is Ace a longtime HackMiami member, but he's also MDC alumni. Let's go Sharks, me too. Last but not least, we've got Patrice Coles, somebody that I would definitely call a real cybersecurity queen bee. Her career has spanned over 20 years, and she's been has been building and growing compliance programs from scratch for some of the world's top companies, from startups to level 1 merchants. She finds the cracks in systems before anyone else does, and that's what sets her company apart in a sea of other compliance security services. Again, everybody, please give it up for our panelists.
Did we do you justice?
And honestly, I really could go on and on about everybody and their bios because they're amazing. We did lots of research. However, we're going to give them a chance to answer some of these questions without me talking for them. So I believe, go for it, Amy.
Sorry, the first question I like to ask anybody, and this is for all of the panel, tell me about a time when your job felt like it was something straight out of the movies.
That has to go back to Prolexic.
Right. I think we would all agree that if probably going back to Prolexic, I think Patrice, the Ace, Prolexic was not like it felt like it was not a job. We actually did what we love, and they treated us pretty well, and there was something going on, and it was out of a movie. I mean, and working with Tuna was like out of a movie. Like Tuna will be here, for example, if he was alive. He was somebody that truly influenced us and helped us, and he's the one who started bringing a lot of us into Prolexic. I'm not sure if Patrice has one of those anecdotes of Prolexic.
Yeah, so for those who don't know Prolexic, we all worked together at Prolexic before, in the past, before where we are now. And it was a startup company, and so the company kind of built as we were there. And it was definitely a case of the right group of people with the right chemistry at the right time. And what Prolexic did was DDoS protection. So when an organization that was our client started to get a DDoS attack, Prolexic would essentially step in front of that organization, take the attack apart, analyze it, determine what the problem was, and then create a solution for it, create essentially like a signature for a virus. And so it was very interesting because, you would be doing a day's work, and then all of a sudden you would just, there were big panels, and you would see the traffic start to rise. and you would feel the you just feel
It was
temperature
panic at the
increase.
time. Yeah, people
Right.
running. People running from one side to the other, guns everywhere. I remember
Yes.
they had to send a memo saying you can bring your gun, but you can't put it on top of your table. It was insane. It was insane. Continue. Sorry.
No, it was just like the whole team would just suddenly become laser focused on this attack, and people would be watching that traffic stream, and there was a mitigation framework. So in other words, you're going to try a tool, and if that tool doesn't respond, you'll try another tool based on what you're seeing, based on what kind of traffic it is and what kind of behavior it is. And it was just like, I mean, probably like the most addicting video game you've ever seen in your life.
That's an amazing part of it, right?
Yeah, but you know, everybody in the whole company would be there, and some of these attacks would go on for days. So literally one shift would, the shift is getting ready to go off shift. So the next shift comes an hour before so that they can see what you're doing and transition off smoothly and move your duties to that oncoming person with no bump, no hiccup whatsoever. And then, you know, as it went on, people might be sleeping on a couch in the corner. They might be sleeping on the floor. They might be at the coffee machine pressing on the button that says like jet fuel. And it was just it was like probably the greatest experience of teamwork and single-minded effort to a cause that I think most any of us experienced. And you can't go through that and not come out on the other side. It was like, you know, my family of, you know, there were 3 girls and 97 brothers.
And it was 24/7 operation.
And the reason I said it you know, it reminded me of the movie is because that was actually what led into the concept of Mr. Robot. So there's YouTube, if you go look, you know, for Mr. Robot Prolexic, there's actually lines in Mr. Robot that say call Prolexic.
Right. Right.
No way.
That was, I believe it was episode number 1 that happened.
Right.
Like,
when
just
they're
to tail off
attacking.
Yeah, just to tail off of what Rod and Patrice are saying, as somebody who sat on the front lines of a lot of those attacks, there was probably no better place to cut your teeth on incident handling. You were very quickly a grizzled veteran of being able to hold shit down, be calm under a really rocky situation. And the way that the teams, you know, escalated to each other, helped each other hand off stuff was just like a masterpiece of artwork. And I'm not just talking about the SOC teams, like handing off to the networking folks, handing off to the system folks, and then further down the line, handing off to the team that Rod worked on, which was the CERT team, for doing research, for finding out, you know, who were these people, what was their MO, what tools were they using, why were they doing this shit in the first place, and then writing a kick-ass piece on it. And then, or even going the distance and busting their botnet wide open and taking it over and, you know, doing fun stuff like that. That was always a great time. So absolutely, I could say, like, to add to Patricia's comment, so you asked like for something that's out of the movie, our company actually created something that then came after, which was on the TV show, which was Mr. Robot.
Right. I agree.
So guns are allowed? What are smoking? Smoking
There were all kinds of guns in there.
No, we had a strict no smoking policy, but you can definitely bring your gun to work.
So
yeah,
it was these days because you really don't hear about Prolexic. You hear of HackMiami and all those other ones. So whatever happened to Prolexic?
I think we're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it as it. Prolexic was fine.
I withdraw my question. I withdraw my question.
Yeah, drop him in the chat if you have him.
Yeah, this is all before we were acquired. Once we were acquired, let me just put it this way: the fun stuff.
It was a different organization after
Right,
that.
right.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, so
No
I
movies from that.
What? Sorry.
No movies from Akamai.
Not really. No, but you know what? Now that you're saying about Prolexic, one of the great things about Prolexic is Prolexic would invest in you.
Right.
Prolexic was not a company that they knew, because DDoS was very specific and there were not such an industry back then, that they had to train you, number one. Two, they had the hacker mentality. They allowed people, you didn't have to have a bachelor's degree, you didn't have to have a master's degree, you didn't have to have SANS certifications. They'll say, we'll take you, we'll train you. And those were the best people I have ever worked in the industry, period. So that, and then we'll invest on you. Like, okay, you want to go to SANS? Listen, what company sends, what was it, 60, 80 people to RSA? And they would put us all together in a hotel.
Yeah.
And it was incredible, the things they did for us. That sort of encourage you. You know, like Patrice just said, it was a family, and it was a 24/7, because the SOC was there, and it was first shift, second shift, and so on. We even had coaches who would go to sleep. There was food. It was almost like I felt sometimes like it was the weekend. Like, people would stop by and say, hey, what's going on? Anything good, or what's happening? It was amazing. That was the best job ever for me.
I think
love that.
that was the only job that I've ever been at where on some of my off days I would think about what was going on at work.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
And to Ron's point, when you started work there, they said, let us know which 2 conferences you're going to be attending. It wasn't
Right.
even a question.
Right.
That was part of what you did, was say, I'm gonna attend this and I'm gonna learn that. It was just accepted as part of the policy. I've worked for extremely large organizations with a whole lot more money that never made that kind of an offer to put that sort of investment into their people in that way.
Right.
So
There was an entire shift. Sorry, one more thing. Just to piggyback off the investing in the people. There was an entire shift dedicated to doing a training. So you'd come to work and you'd have training. And it wasn't, I'm not talking about like, oh, here's security awareness training where you don't click on this stupid email, or you'd have really, really technical folks that would come in the room and they'd break you down on some really awesome technical stuff about what was going on in the company and some technology either that they were interested in using or currently using in the environment, and teach you all this stuff.
that's awesome. So
Yeah.
as a follow-up, I want to know, it sounds like 2 parts, right? One, would you recommend being in a SOC for anyone, regardless of what vertical they end up in cybersecurity, as their early career move? 2, would you say, and this is again for the entire panel, how would you say that you were able to cull through all of these different interesting, I guess, specializations? Because I see that, each of you have ended up in your own spaces, compliance, cloud, research, and you're all principals, right? How did that journey happen for you? So that's a 2-part.
I can get it started if you want. Prolexic was very open, right? But they wanted you, like, for example, if you were going to be a security engineer, you had to go to the SOC, by the way, which, by the way, that was great. I never worked at the SOC directly, but I had to shadow a guy for a week, and then they would send me to watch what they were doing during the campaigns. That it was like, this is our business, you need to know it. And not only that, sometimes depending on who you were, you have a chance to go to certain departments of others. Remember, it was a small company, right? We were at 132 at one point. And regarding on how, for example, I picked up where to go, I you know, just like you guys, some of you guys that approach us and says, I want to do pen testing. I wanted to do pen testing. So that's how I sort of started directing. At one point, I said I'd done enough. Was probably next for me. I said, maybe you would do research, right?
And to tag onto what Rod said, I also did not sit in the SOC, but it was a similar scenario. In a compliance position, I needed to be able to understand the product and to verbalize to Prolexic customers how that product was going to allow them to comply to payment card industry standards, ISO standards, whatever. So while I didn't have that experience of sitting in the chair doing, you know, looking at the screens being my primary job, I still had to understand what was going on and know what it meant and understand how that was going to impact customers. So I would say that sitting in the SOC per se may not be necessary, but having the understanding is definitely necessary. And having that kind of characteristic, you know, to be a detail-oriented person, to learn those technical things, you need to want to do that. That needs to be the kind of thing that you're interested in doing. And moving forward, having gone, you know, beyond Prolexic, I find that now what I do is a lot of, I guess you would maybe sort of call it compliance architecture, creating solutions that allow an organization to become compliant from whatever it is they have, which might not be much. And you can't always give, you know, I mean, it's great if you work for all the big organizations and you have all the money, but that's not the reality for a lot of people. And so how creative you can get to create a solution that meets their needs with what they have or with what they can put into it is pretty important. So you build on that, those characteristics of how creative you can get and how you understand what they're doing. Even if you didn't sit in the SOC, if you have those characteristics, it gives you what you need to move forward. Ace is the one who did actually sit in the SOC. What are your input, Ace?
I just want to say real quick. So Patrice sat in like a cubicle unit that was like just behind the SOC. We had a pretty open space in Prolexic, and a lot of the teams got to kind of, like I think Rod mentioned, we kind of, you know, would walk over to another area and say, hey, are you working on this or whatever's going on? So there was a lot of kind of cross training and cross talk. I just want to say one thing, like watching Patrice work at what she did is badass. Patrice is an absolute badass when it comes to her job. And like, I respect Patrice so much for what she did. And moving forward in my career, whenever I had been assigned any type of compliance tasks, or if I ever had to like champion a compliance effort for some whatever product or team that I was on, I always look back very fondly on the way that Patrice handled the situation, and I use that as a way to kind of get through that stuff. So thank you very much, Patrice, and you're awesome, by the way. Going back to the discussion on do you think it's relevant, or do you think it's a good way to cut your teeth starting your cybersecurity career in a SOC? I definitely think so. I definitely think so in our SOC, it was like Rod mentioned, is a very niche type of technology that or not even a technology, a methodology of blocking DDoS attacks, which, you know, you didn't really like have this type of, this wasn't like a common thing. SOCs would mainly look at like malware. They would look at, you know, vulnerabilities that were going on in their infrastructure and their environment. And so being inside of a SOC that was catered towards DDoS was like a very unique perspective. What was very interesting about it too was that we dealt with every single vertical of industry. So whether that be financial industry, e-commerce site, porn site, gaming site, whatever site we had, we definitely saw the entire breadth of industries using that technology and being protected by that technology. So if I would say one thing that would stick out to me is like, if you get an opportunity to work in a SOC that has multiple industries that it protects, I'd say that that's a really awesome opportunity, because you will get the experience and understanding of, when you move further on in your career, you know, how you kind of work through these different organizations and how they think about how they need security. Working with a bank is vastly different than working with somebody who runs a social media site in the way that they think about security. So absolutely.
And to add a little bit more on that, and that's why, by the way, everybody that was there in that company has gone to everywhere, Facebook, Google, Cloudflare, you name it, because those people, and this comes alluding sort of to the question that Roger just asked in the chat, is because we were defending people, some industries that were like, listen, you want to see the newest, the latest, and the baddest attacks, protect the casino. The casinos get hit with everything 24/7. And the other one, unfortunately, is the cam people. So I have to assume the OnlyFans will be incredibly difficult to defend, because they get, I don't know what's going on with those campsites, dude, but it's like they try to take him down, attacking everywhere. So examples of things like that. Then we had to we protected, by the way, 8 of the top 10 banks in the United States. And that's also why a competitor decides to acquire us. That's basically what happened. A competitor, which we were taking basically clients from them, and then they got upset and they had their cash and they took us over. That's basically what happened. And then, well, the rest is history. But what A says is very true. The diversity of things that we had to protect. It was, you had to learn the nature of the business. You had to understand the business logic. And we were protecting people that quite frankly needed to be protected. So
yeah, the really, like, the best folks that I ever worked with, and the sort of the best mentoring that I got out of there, kind of all boils down to this one quote that I very you know, come back to all the time, and I think of, which is good engineers check the site. And what that means is that you have an intimate knowledge of what the person you're protecting does from like Rod said, a business logic flow. And then you also are very intimate, you know what's going on with their site, and you're checking their site. You're not just going to their homepage and checking, oh, is their website up? Like, no. Create an account on their site, log into the site, click on some of the features, do some of the things. Those were the best engineers. Those were the people that really knew what the hell they were doing and could protect A to Z.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go into the next question. And this, again, is going to be an all-panel question. Everybody can go ahead. Roger asks, when interviewing security folks, particularly those without degrees, certs, etc., how do you test for the intangible qualities that matter the most? So persistence, problem solving, passion. Do you start off asking them where they get their news? I'm going to go ahead this time and start with Patrice.
Well, I think part of that is if it's just in the context of an interview, you're going to have to ask them a question that is based on a scenario. Give them a scenario in which they would come under fire, or in which they would have some sort of an obstacle, and see if what they're responding to you is in line with what it is that you're expecting. That's one of the things that I find for myself a huge part of what I do, because let's face it, the compliance people are never the first people you put on the list to invite to your party. We're not the fun crowd, you know. We're always
Patrice,
the one that mean
you are Patrice.
they didn't get the memo, right? They don't you're always pretty much for what I represent, you're going to have to do work and spend money. And so, when you walk in the door, people are like, oh man. So persistence is probably, the question was, what about certifications? Certifications get you in the door. Persistence keeps you in the job. And a large part of what I do is continue to press for whatever objective needs to be accomplished. And one of the things I would definitely say in that is look for, like when you ask that question, try to evaluate the creativity. One of the things I would say, if somebody gives you only one answer, you probably don't want somebody that has only one tool in their, in their tool belt. So if somebody is thinking and being creative, and my day-to-day experience is, a handyman that shows up with only a hammer, he's only going to help you do a very small, task. So you have to have a lot of tools. Hopefully, as you speak to someone in an interview, you can get an idea how creative they are and what they could do to think of other tools. Sometimes just bulldozing your way through something is helpful if everything else is in place and they just need someone to keep things moving forward. But sometimes being a bulldozer is not the way to get the job done. Sometimes you have to have some finesse and make people understand what the value is to them and sell them on it. And so you have to have other tools. So I would do that. I would give them a scenario and then see how creative they can get with what tools they could work with.
Okay. And then thank you so much for that. Ace, would you like to tell us like what your opinion would be on that? What do you look for in potential candidates?
Yeah, absolutely. In the past year or so, I've done quite a plethora of interviews actually, and the interviews have ranged from all different types of positions, from software development engineers to security folks to project managers. And I usually will try to cater the interview as best of my ability to whatever strengths we're trying to pull out of that candidate. One interesting thing that I get thrown on a lot is I usually get the very technical portion of the interview. They'll wind me up and they'll throw me in there and they'll say, just hit them with all the nasty technical stuff that you can hit them with. And I don't always think that that's a fair assessment or judgment of a candidate to just try to hit them with a bunch of technical questions like, oh, what is this specific directory on a Linux system? Well, give me 2 seconds and you can Google it. That's not what we're trying to evaluate here. I myself came from a place of having pretty much self-taught myself to get into the industry. And I did go to college, but I didn't go for a computer science degree. And a lot of the folks that I worked with did not even necessarily come from that space either. Some of the most brilliant people that I've met just either have self-taught themselves or have been just passionate enough about whatever they're doing to get into it and just figure it out themselves. So I think Patrice definitely brings out a good point. Is I love to bring up scenarios and I love to keep driving on the scenario. So if somebody comes in there and I say, hey, how do I solve this problem? And they approach it with this one tool, then I'll double down on that question. I'll say, all right, cool, you solved it with this tool. Tell me how you would solve it if you didn't even have that tool. What would you do in that scenario? That's a pretty good follow-up question. I also sometimes will help my candidates along if they're struggling a little bit. And I'll say, oh, maybe there's this thing that you could use, or you already told me about this ideology. How would you further bring out that point and flesh that out a little bit more, So another thing that I like to do is if somebody claims that they don't have either a certification or they're in school or they haven't had quite the education, I say, what does your home lab look like? What are some things that you've done to help your parents or the people in your lives that ask you for IT work? If it's a position for incident handling, tell me about a challenging time that you've been through and how did you handle each one of the steps, and talk to me through the entire process and how you completed that process. What was the outcome, and did you sit down afterwards, and what was the post-mortem, and what did you learn from all that stuff? So those are the types of questions that I'll try to get into and have people think about. And really there you can dissect somebody's critical thinking skills, You can see if they have the passion very easily when you talk about like a home lab or you talk about interest in the community. I was doing an interview last week and somebody brought up a piece of security news that I had read that very morning, and I was like, oh man, kudos for bringing that up because that's awesome. Whenever you're doing an interview, no matter what, I think you should definitely always do your research on the company that you're getting ready to interview for. And the biggest key thing that I think when it comes to interviews is you have to keep this one bit of crucial advice in mind. When you're interviewing, a person is finding out about you if you're a right fit for their company. You're also finding out if that company is a right fit for you. So you need to ask those questions and think about those things when you're going into the company as well.
A1 advice, Ace. Like amazing advice. Rod, what about you? What do you look for when it, or I'm sorry, how do you assess that in your candidates?
Well, I agree with both of them. We did basically, we at least, this is what I learned, right? I had interviewed all kinds of people from PhDs to I had nothing to show for it, but I just came out of the military. My best two people, one was an ex-Marine that he basically couldn't afford anything and just like video games, and he learned how to crack them. And I saw him play my Capture the Flags. Ace knows who I'm talking about. And this kid was a wizard. I actually had to basically sort of stick my neck out for him to get hired because they didn't believe that he had no experience, had nothing. And then my other great hire, which is still at that company, is a dropout from arts, wasn't even computer science. And he was working on the adult media industry, and nobody wanted to give him a chance either. And I said, this guy's amazing. I trust that he's going to do well. And he did amazing. So you had to. I would say this: you can't just turn down somebody because they have a different background or because they don't have a master's degree. You know, I had one time to hire a person with a very high-end degree, and I got in trouble because the person did not perform, and that reflected badly on me. So what I used to do is basically some of the things that Ace just said. At one point I realized too, sometimes I will get people that will come from certain government agencies and said, I can't show you this because it's classified, right? I later discovered that that's a way to skid a question, basically. So what I try to do, I used to have a capture the flag. Basically, I will give them, for example, a simple. I wasn't even giving them like a big deal. I was giving them, for example, I would give them a web app which had all WAF stuff. Then, for example, or I would give them a binary that didn't have certain protections that even if you didn't break it, but if you were able to crash it and tell me how you did it, and said, okay, you have an idea what you're trying to do. I would say you need to have more on skills and potential than background. If you hire somebody just on educational background and you don't test, you risk what happened to me, which is I said, oh, you got this, all this and this, and then I gave them a binary and they said, what do you want me to do with this? And that's what I knew that I was in serious trouble. so you got to be careful. You got to be careful when you hire people just expecting for them to perform based on paper. You want to try to do a little more dynamic scenarios. Like A said, are they thinking outside the box? What do they do in their free time? Are they, for example, going into groups? Like, for example, in our case, we vetted a lot of people via HackMiami because we knew who was who, and we were constantly playing capture the flags, and we knew, okay, this guy knows. So by the time you were to the interview, you sort of we also sort of knew if you were going to be good or not. And also, I used to do some of the other stuff that Roger was asking. We used to do what we call the beer test. The beer test is basically you go out with the whole team and you forget about work and you just have lunch and drink a beer. And the question that the team needs to answer is, can I talk to this guy outside work? If your answer is this guy is a genius, but he's a jerk, we can't hire him. Genius jerks will destroy your team, unfortunately, right? They may do great at times, and they may be amazing, but if you're trying to build a team, it usually brings a lot of back and forths, and eventually some of your good people will say, I can't work with this guy, I had to leave. So teams a lot of times are a lot of soft skills, right? Which is sort of what Roger was alluding to. And for Kyle, who was asking how to you have interest in the industry, like A said, he's self-taught. I was self-taught too. How did I learn? I look at groups like this. I went to conferences. I went on Twitter, and then when I went to Twitter, somebody said, "Hey, there is this vulnerability in Windows." I will build my own lab. I will test that vulnerability, and little by little, I started meeting people, reading books, networking, and eventually, that's how I was able to do it.
And if I could just tack on to what Rod said, that's really important. Don't be afraid to create where there isn't something already. I can tell you for what I do, I have degrees. I have college degrees. They're not for what my job is. There is no college course of study that you can take to get a degree for what it is I'm doing day to day. So you have to keep in mind that if it's what you want to do, you may need to create the path. It may not be there for you. So you have to have that in you to be willing to do that.
That's a hacker mentality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just to chime in, I hope that is not to say that college degrees are not important, because even though it may not be directly related, it does help when you see someone communicating through email or report, you know this person is refined in the way they write or so when they have college degrees.
I agree with that, and I can definitely say I personally kind of subscribe to the theory that when you are getting a job, that initial discussion that you're going to have with your employer is in many cases going to peg you to where you're going to work from forevermore there. So you need to be on top of your game when you have that discussion about what money you're going to make and what you're going to do and what you're going to get. So having the degrees definitely gives you kind of an automatic step up. I can certainly say that for my salary level, there's a certain amount of discussion that in general does not have to happen because of the degrees. Like Rod said, he hired somebody with a master's degree. So there's a certain amount of kind of default give in that case. So there is some value to the degrees, certainly. But again, to his point, if you come in and then don't perform to that level, your degree is not going to save you in that case.
It's a rough spot. I think credentials.
I agree.
Oh, so sorry.
One has to perform because one other positive thing before I take up so much time about a degree, you know that if someone could go up to master's level or PhD level, it shows that if they can actually get it, they must display perseverance to actually be able to get up to that level. So that's one positive in their favor. Perhaps they don't have the technical know-how, but for someone to get up to PhD level, it shows they must be patient. And that's one quality we also need in this field, patience and perseverance.
True.
Yeah,
true.
I definitely agree. I was going to say onto that point, what Patrice was saying, I don't in any way diminish somebody that has a degree. I just think, like on Rod's point, is that, you know, a credential will start me to have a conversation with you about something where I could already assume that you have pieces of knowledge that you should have based on your credential. So if there's a master's degree, I already have assumptions about things that you've done in your life, but you still you do yourself a disjustice if you're an interviewer and you don't still prod and poke at some of those things that they should have done there, because that's when you get into a problem where you're like, oh, this guy has a doctorate or this guy has a master's degree in cybersecurity. Well, what kind of technical ability has he actually touched? What has he done? Like, fine, if you spent a couple of days on Metasploit, whatever, but if your job is going to be doing Metasploit every single day and you barely know how to fire the thing up, then that's going to be a problem. So you need to know how to poke and prod at those things based on somebody's credentials.
I agree.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Patrice, you set me up for the, I don't even understand sports that well, but the perfect pick and roll, mentioning compensation. And then Rod also mentioned it earlier with the sunshine tax. How do you ask for compensation? How do you ask for what you're worth? I think a lot of us, I got lucky with this one thing. Yeah, I got lucky with my internship now, but I think a lot of us are so happy to have our first positions that we just take whatever comes to us, and we're being grossly overpaid almost 100% of the time. I think that everybody can say yes to that. How do you ask for what you're worth?
I have a really good way to sift through that shit real quick. So in major companies, you are very highly discouraged from discussing your salary with other coworkers and colleagues. Fuck that. Like, excuse my French, but fuck that. Talk to people. The best thing that you can do for yourself in this industry and any industry is to interview regularly, even if you're absolutely happy with your job, because that will find out what your market worth is for another company. And you may surprise yourself and find some other kick-ass gig that you weren't even expecting that you were going to find, and get into that gig. Negotiation skills, which are something that you will never learn in a cybersecurity college career course or any certification that you ever take. Soft skills are something that are definitely required. Rod mentioned earlier, if you have a savant that has zero social skills or is a dick, you don't want to work with that person. It doesn't matter. That person's not going to get the job. Or if they get the job, it's because the interviewers didn't do proper due diligence. So it's very important that you go to a lot of interviews. You're going to fuck up a lot in the beginning, I promise you. So if there's a place that you have that's your dream job, do not go apply at that place for your first fucking interview.
Right, exactly.
Take a couple of chances to go to a bunch of different places and interview and learn what the process is. Learn the appropriate time when you should have those discussions. Not only should you think about compensation and how much money you get paid, but it's also about work-life balance. It's also about things that are afforded to you in the position. Do you get to work remotely? How do they handle you when you have a sick day? Do they offer you any amenities? Are there any perks for working at the company? You got to think about total compensation as well. So those are things that you will never learn by going to a cybersecurity course, by learning how to break into a bank. You'll never learn that shit like that. You have to learn that through experience, through education, of you doing it on your own and figuring that shit out.
And the only person who can determine the value of some of those things is you. How much does it matter to you that you work from home? Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does.
Right.
And one of the things to keep in mind too, I don't want to cut you off. Are you done?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, one of the other things too, I saw one of the questions in the chat, where's a good place to start, boot camp, self-study, what programs? If you, like, for example, I have a study group that I attend every week. It's all tech professionals who are gainfully employed, and we all have jobs. We're not looking for jobs, but somebody wrote a book a couple months ago that had interesting stuff in there. So we get together and we do that. We have everybody in that study group, from people who have been in the industry for probably are past their retirement age, to be quite honest, to brand new people. And if I wanted to know what any one of those made, I could just ask them. If I want to get a general idea, what is the range of a SOC 1 analyst? They would tell me. If I go to a HackMiami meeting, I could go up to Rod and say, hey, Rod, if I want to be a security researcher, can you give me an idea what I'm going to make? So part of it is hanging around those people, making the connections with those people. And if that's what you think you want to do, then those are the people you should be seeking to get advice from anyway, and to hang out with and to learn from. I can say for myself, being a compliance person, when I first started going to the HackMiami meetings, they were really technical. Most of the people there were employees at Prolexic. They were talking about DDoS. I didn't understand a lot of what they said. Many times I would just go and I would just write down 5 words that they said that might have been Mandarin for what I could understand, and go home and study it, because then at least the next time they said those 5 words, I could be conversant on it. I might leave the next time with 5 more words, but it took time, but I was able to build up that vocabulary. So in terms of getting started in the industry, and then where that goes in terms of your worth, make friends with those people. Study groups usually are for free. If you join the HackMiami channels, they have all kinds of training resources. Some are free, some are not. Some of them may apply to you, some may not, but it's not going to cost you anything to go in there and look. I find that a mix is good for self-study. You know, it's great if you can just pay a lot of money to do whatever you want. I would love to have that problem. But for me, some things are worth it. Because I'm in a payment card industry, there are certain certifications that really just speak. When you walk in the door with that certification, you're on a completely different level. So there are some things that are worth it and some things are not, but make friends with those people and learn that. In terms of one of the other things that I wanted to tack onto what A said is, oh my God, learn to communicate. You know, if you have great skills and you can't write a paper that anyone can read, if you have mad skills and no one can read your email and come out of it knowing what it was you intended to say, then you have a problem. So don't forget the skills that may not seem obvious. Technical skills are awesome, but if you can't communicate what you meant, then you don't appear to have value, because you can't communicate what it is you're adding. So just don't overlook the, you know, I guess they call them soft skills, but to me, that's your presentation of yourself. So don't overlook how it is that you state yourself. My recommendation for an interview, I mean, you need to be confident. To me, confidence and firmness is one thing. Being cocky is different. And I think the cocky thing doesn't sell very well. So keep in mind, you know, maybe you're the best red teamer that ever walked on the face of the planet, and that's awesome, but that doesn't help you if the person that you're talking to is really looking for blue team skills. It doesn't help you if they're looking for red team skills, but the red team people have to work with the blue team people. So keep in
Patrice,
mind your audience.
Another interesting point is red teams don't get paid unless they produce the report.
Yeah, touche. Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah, don't forget the things that may not seem so obvious. Just technical skills is not the end of the discussion.
Wow. Okay, so we have quite a few questions in the chat in less than 10 minutes to go. So I wanted to get through some of them. Maybe this was a quick one. I don't know. Hopefully.
Speed round.
All right. How soon should one specialize instead of being a jack of all trades in cybersecurity?
Great question.
When you realize you're good at it and you want to do it.
Right. I tell people this, you will find what is it that you like the most to do. I knew, for example, when they put me in SecOps and I had to push configurations for firewalls. I'm like, this is not gonna cut it. And when I did pen test, I said, oh, I'm very enthused about this. So that's what I tell people: give it a try, right? And find that who you truly want to pursue. And I would like to say this also about the last question. I personally, it was very hard for me to break in cybersecurity. It took me 3 years. I count and look back. I was in IT and I was a support engineer, and that sort of gave me a little bit of at times a little bit of exposure. But I can tell you this: the companies would never even call me back. The companies only wanted to hire people from the security industry. The industry itself has changed a little bit, but when I started in security, I took a pay cut. I took around a $20,000 pay cut because I was in another industry where I had cap, obviously, but I knew that was my cap. I said, this is it. There's no higher. I'm not going to become a manager. And then I started looking into the cybersecurity, and it wasn't that easy. I had to go to these groups. I had to prove myself. I had to make friendships. I had to network. I had to play this capture the flags, and it was incredibly frustrated at times because I wouldn't score. I wouldn't get anywhere. And it took me 3 years. It wasn't easy. Nowadays, it's not that difficult because there are programs for it. There are groups like this, but it was not like that back then. It was very difficult.
All right, I'm gonna jump in with a little bit more of a technical question. I'm like speed round. With the emergence of blockchain technologies and its focus on encryption and security, along with the hype, what are some opinions or misconceptions that you have found with the industry involving blockchain?
The importance of blockchain. That's the answer.
I think Ace is the best person to answer this question.
That's what I'll say.
I was surprised the other day that all NFTs are going to be basically meaningless in what, like 3 months, 4 months? Like they're going to be.
I read that article too. I think, like, here's what I think. Seriously, on the topic, I think a new technology emerges, and a lot of people get excited about it. And the problem is that a lot of people want to implement this technology rather than have a problem that they need a solution for and use a technology that solves that problem. They are trying to use this technology in every bit of space that they possibly can and trying to solve problems that don't exist. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
Okay, next question. And I really wanted to ask this one as well. Roger wants to know, how do you balance a team's need for a strong cultural fit with maintaining an inclusive group that doesn't box out good people or have certain ingrained prejudices? This is such a good question. Such a good question. I am the only girl, well, one of only 2 women on my team, and definitely like the only women of color, but also I work at Swank. Everybody is so nice. I don't even know how else to say it. Like, it's like working with a bunch of Labrador puppies. But I would love to know, what is it? Everybody's so nice. Everybody is so nice. But can you answer this for me, everyone?
You want to start, Patrice, or yeah?
Oh, go ahead, Patrice. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay, so I can say, at least from the perspective of it being female, historically, for years, I've been one of very few females in whatever it is that I've been doing. And I usually get along well with the males. I don't, you know, I try not to have a thin skin about anything with anyone. So, you know, to me, you know, some people might be upset if people say certain things or whatever. I'm not that person. I'm there to learn and to do a job. And if it's not adding to that, then I may choose to move on and do something else. But I try not to be a thin-skinned person because I just don't see that that's going to get me anywhere. In terms of fitting in with the group, you know, to me, that's one of the things that you need to, everybody needs to understand and work on that. So, you know, most of the people that I work with, I'll tell them, you know, pretty quickly after you hear me talk, you're probably going to understand. And I'll say, you know, hey, this may be coming from a hillbilly perspective, because people are going to hear my accent and they're going to know I'm probably from Tennessee or Texas or someplace like that. So, you know, I just roll with it. I try not to get caught up in it, because my feeling is, if it is a good cultural fit, if I fit well with the group and the group fits well with me, then that chemistry just happens. I try not to put barriers to it and just let it, you know, it's like water. Water is going to take the path of least resistance. If it's a fit, it will go there for you. Don't make artificial barriers to that happening. And I've had good success with that.
So what about on the flip side of that, not as an incoming employee, or sorry, not as an incoming employee, but the person that's running the team themselves? How can you look at it from that side? Like, how can you ensure?
You know, one of the things that I do when I reach out, when it's going the other way around, is I try to look for things that I can clearly see a person excelling in. And a lot of times what I'll do is approach them. I try to make it a point to say, you know, I see that you are really good at this thing. And set up a rapport with them where, you know, like I have somebody on my team that I call Eagle Eyes. And I call her that because she, man, you can give her the biggest heap of garbage data anywhere, and she will go through it and she will find the anomaly. It doesn't matter how, as like Tuna, you know, with his freaking bots, you know, some people just are doing stuff. He could find it. And so I said, hey, you know, you're great at that. Do you mind if I call you Eagle Eyes? She laughed. She said, no, now the whole team calls her Eagle Eyes. But everybody bonded over that. So, and I guess I wouldn't call that culture per se. I mean, it's not tied to her being, you know, whatever, a cultural group. But in terms of the building of the team, I try to find what people are good at. I ask them. I always ask them. I never assume. But I say, man, you're fantastic at that. Do you mind if I call you Eagle Eyes? She says, yeah. Now everybody knows, if you have that issue, go to her. So you've kind of set her up as a SME, a subject matter expert on that. And then everybody else just, the water follows the path, right? So I just try to point out things that maybe someone didn't point out, but that foster that kind of culture and team building.
That's fantastic. Gentlemen, do you have anything for that?
Yeah, I'll speak on it real quick. I think it's a very difficult question to approach from somebody, you know, who I agree with Patrice. I think having the thick skin is certainly useful in this line of work. What I think, even saying that, even kind of discussing that, is kind of like, I don't want to say it's wrong, but like, in order for you to get a culture and you know, good folks, like, you maybe not necessarily need somebody that needs to have thick skin as well, because you might just be excluding people that don't necessarily have thick skin, and you're just telling them like, oh, you should be okay with the stupid shit that these people say. Like, that's not okay also. But like, I think that as somebody who's led teams before, creating outside team bonding experiences will help with that, and you'll kind of quickly find out, like, does the team mesh well? Are they doing things? When I was working in the SOC, I I've not been in the military and I can't say this for sure, but like I was fighting attacks. I took it personally that people were attacking me and the companies that I was protecting. And I couldn't have done that if I didn't trust the guy sitting next to me. So having that bond, having that like kind of culture inside of my team was very important for us to be able to do our job well. So, you know, I think we're in kind of a different era. I just yesterday took a bunch of trainings on microaggressions. And then I thought it was hilarious because I watched a couple episodes of Silicon Valley talking about microaggressions. So I think we're moving to this place where we want to be like very inclusive of everybody. But I also come from a space that like early on in the security industry, like a way of hazing somebody was getting them to click on Goatsy or getting them to look at some fucked up website that you should never look at and you should not be exposed to that. But like I was exposed to that and that was my upbringing. So like if somebody shows me something that's fucked up, I'm not gonna like shy away from it. I'm not gonna leave a group because somebody says something outrageous. That's just not how I am. But I understand that nowadays we're moving into a place where not everybody was exposed to that. And it's like probably also not okay to try to get somebody to look at meatspin.com. Like, you know what I mean? So I think it's tough. I think it's a challenge.
Rob, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, well, I do have yeah, I agree with them, but I'll have to say this, and this comes with what he just said. We were in newer times, but you have to understand, and I'm trying to say this without, how can I say this? I'm going to say this as a person that, one, is minority, two, took some time to break into the industry. It is important. All this new stuff is important, the inclusiveness, the respect, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, InfoSec is the people that cleans the sewage from the internet. Criminals will never be polite, will never be politically correct, and you're going to see bad stuff. So if you don't have the thick skin, like they just said, you're not gonna make it. I'm sorry to tell you this. You're gonna see something that's gonna frustrate you. You're gonna see something that you're gonna get PTSD. You need to understand. I know there's this glamorization of InfoSec, and some people think that is, I'm just gonna go into hot topic and then tweet like on lead and shit. Dude, that is not InfoSec. These are problems. This is we're now at a point where people may actually die for a ransomware attack. When you work in this industry, it's tough. This is not rosy. This is not, all the kumbaya. No, it is important to have environments that are inclusive. It is important to have people that understand you, that culturally accept you, but it's also good for you to be prepared because you're going to be challenged and it's going to be tough. So don't confuse inclusiveness with, oh, we can't see these things, right? There will be investigations you're gonna have to do. There will be tension. I remember Patrice and Ace can tell you there were attacks that everybody was cussing, right? Like you see the screens and we were down, and like, dude, they just kicked our ass. And on the other side of that conference call is the customer that's paying us $1 million a month. I mean, this is serious business. I know we say this as a mockery, but the internet is a serious business, and you're gonna be exposed. At one point, you're gonna see something you don't like. So always consider that. Consider that because this is not rosy. This is not history-ish. This is, I consider a lifestyle. So that I like to point that out for all of those who are coming. And I had to see it. I saw it with different groups. There are, of course, depends on where you work, right? If you work on the West Coast, it's a little different. If you go on the East Coast, it's a little different. But always be aware of that. The InfoSec, I always describe it. When you go at night in New York, you see those people under the sewage. That's us. Without us, it would be a disaster. Somebody has to do the dirty work. That's what we do. We clean it.
There's a particularly interesting attack that came to mind that I believe the PLX CERT team did research on, and the hacker attributed with the attack was named "Bitch Got Raped."
Remember that we actually that was even discussed. I'm like, how are we gonna write this on our report?
Right.
And that was his name. That was his name. That was the same. And actually, once we posted that report, he tweeted it with the same thing. Bitch got raped. It's like, thank you, that's me. And I'm like, okay, you see that? That's cybercrime right there. These people are not going to change. They're not interested in what's politically correct or not. They don't care if you get offended or not. I mean, if you see the things that all of us have seen, like when you see like the raw internet, the things that get pushed for the attacks, dude, you had to have some thick skin. You had to have it.
You have to keep in mind that you don't have to be aligned with someone to learn from them, you know,
Right.
and
That's a good point.
Take the value, take what the value is, and don't get hung up on what the value is not.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
taking this
Roger
question
brings
more
up
to
a.
mean. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, Roger brings up a really good point. Is that hackers will try to throw you off your emotional game so that you do not think rationally. They will try to trigger you. They will try to make you feel uncomfortable so that you don't make the right decision.
Yep.
I was thinking of this question more from the perspective of me being from Miami, talking to like a team in, I don't know, in Cali, and being able to say, dale, bro, and maybe that not being a good cultural fit. But yeah, this is a very interesting point too. Obviously, you do encounter some very heavy things and you have to be ready for it. On the flip side.
I mean,
That part, I was gonna say, the part that you brought up is also very significant as well. I've actually, on the team that I'm on now, I work with teams like literally all across the world now. And this has like got me thinking about solving problems in a different way, because I have worked with folks that have completely different cultures than myself. And I actually value this so much. Like the fact that I've been able to work with teams in Eastern Europe or in India or on the West Coast and see how they work and see what the way they solve challenges and see the way that they do things has been immense for me, being able to look at a challenge and dissect it in a different mindset than me just thinking about it from my Pirates Cove life Miami Cuban hat.
Same here. I'm on a global team, and you really need to understand the context that other people are thinking from.
Matt, I just want to say thank you all. This has been so fun. I haven't stopped laughing. I've had to mute myself because I cackle very loudly. You guys are amazing. And I wish we had even 15 more minutes.
Of this. Yeah.
Yeah, we need more of this.
Hey, I mean, we're pretty accessible on the Discord. If you guys have further questions, I mean, we all have pretty public personas, Twitter handles, I mean, email addresses. You guys could reach out to us. We're, happy to field some of these questions or go a little bit further. The traditional way that we would wrap up in-person HackMiami meetings was usually going to like a bar or a place where we could get some food, and then we would just kind of wind down. And if the talk was like particularly interesting, the conversations would just keep going. And there's been several conversations that have led into like Rod mentioned Chad earlier. There's been times where we go to a meeting, and then him and I spend the next couple of days like hacking on something or whatever, and just and that's just the way it turns out. So since we've sort of had these virtual meetings, I think it could extend a little bit further in the Discord. Feel free to, if you want to ping me on Discord, I'm happy to answer. If you want to ping me on Twitter or, however you want to reach me with any of these questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you. We always complain that we don't see new blood, and that's what we see now. Listen, wait till you start going. Wait till you start going to the conference. You're going to start seeing a lot of white hair, a lot of white and gray hair. It's unfortunate, but it looks like, and this coming back from the last question, there's a reason why there is a lot of alcoholism, divorces. I tell some people, this is like the healthcare industry. The stress that you're put through in some of these positions, it will affect you. And we need new people. We need people like you, and an initiative like this is pretty important.
Thank you so much, guys. We will definitely be reaching out again for not only more AMAs, but other meetings so that you can meet other students and people who are interested in the field. I'm furiously scribbling down these Twitter handles.
It's easier if you just go into Discord.
Yeah.
Discord, yeah, and Discord you can ask everybody.
If you mention somebody or whatever, they usually will check within a few. Some people check quicker than others, but usually you'll get us.
Yep.
A shameless plug here, because not everyone is going to be red team. For those who are considering software security, blue team, we also have South Florida OWASP. Oh, we have a meetup page. Please check on that. South Florida OWASP.
That's my jam. Hi.
Okay.
And definitely join the PHAC meeting at what, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or is it 5 p.m.? I'm forgetting.
It's 2 p.m. Pacific. That will be 5 p.m.
Okay, it's
5,
5.
5 right.
5 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
That's a great discussion. Thanks to everybody.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, seriously,
All right,
Roger,
thank
you
you.
just killed it with those questions.
Have
Thank you.
a wonderful